Look, let's have a look at Iran and Israel. All eyes are in Israel at the moment. We are expecting a retaliation strike against Iran imminently. Could be as soon as tonight, could be in the next couple of days. My sources tell me this is now a question of not if, but when. We've seen that world leaders just yesterday, foreign secretaries from the UK and from Germany went to Israel to try and give advice to Benjamin Netanyahu and Isaac Herzog on how they should retaliate. Here was David Cameron after visiting. Have a look.
But it's clear the Israelis are making a decision to act. We hope they do so in a way that does as little to escalate this as possible.
Matt, do you think... Well, I might actually start with you on this one, Michael, if you don't mind. Do you think Israel should attack Iran? And if so, what do you think the most effective targets would be for retaliation?
Poor old David Cameron used to be called the head of the Camel Corps, and his previous advice before he got to Israel reflected that. Look, I think the Israelis are very wise, prudent. I expect a little later than you suspect Sharri after Passover, so that's after Tuesday. And I think they will act on mainland Iran. They cannot spend another $1.9 billion as they did on Saturday night doing 10 or 20 of these Iranian attacks without response. And they have to be very measured and be careful of civilians. I expect the missile factories and the drone factories will suffer some kind of fate, and that Iranian spy ship off the coast of Eritrea, off the edge of the Persian Gulf, that's directing all of those Houthi proxy attacks, that might find itself at the bottom of the ocean.
No one would be disappointed if either of those targets were hit, especially because we suspect that the missile factories, or the weapons factories in Iran, have been supplying weapons to Russia as well. Matt Canavan, we've seen that the US has called for restraint. They didn't even want Israel to strike back. But we have to remember that this isn't just a case of Iran launching those 350 attack drones and missiles on the weekend, but Iran reportedly greenlit the Hamas October 7 attacks. They fund Hezbollah, and they've been behind the Houthi rebels that have disrupted shipping. And that was all before the unprecedented direct attack on the weekend. Matt Canavan.
Well, look, I completely understand the desire for retaliation from the Israeli government. The attack that was made on them by Iran was reprehensible and does need a global response. But I am on the side of caution here. I used the example in the 1990s where Iraq bombed Israel during the first Gulf War, and the then Israeli leadership showed incredible restraint in not responding and not inflaming those tensions. And I think in hindsight, that was an extremely wise decision. I think we've got to be very careful here. I don't want the region here in the Middle East to descend into a wider war and certainly risk any greater collaboration. I mean, I think you've got to be very careful in these situations that if you're going to retaliate, if you try and do so in just a cautious way, it can just lead to a further downward spiral, because I agree with you, it would be fantastic, of course, to disarm Iran and disable their ability to attack other countries. But we also have to be realistic. Is that going to be an outcome from these attacks? If you're not going to disable and disarm them, all you possibly will do is can inflame tensions further and lead to more conflict around the world.
Michael Danby, very quickly, before we move on to the next topic, what do you think about that? Is this a serious concern that this could lead to more regional escalation?
Matt's right. If they don't do the right thing, they have to be measured, prudent, accurate. And I think you'll find that their military and technology is far more formidable than Iran's. And there are all kinds of methods that they've got to achieve the aims that I suggested. Degrading the missile and drone factories would be especially good, even if they do it by cyber warfare. Our Ukrainian friends would be very grateful for that too, as their cities are being and civilians are being murdered by these dreadful Iranian drones every night.